Well, it's Holger Mueller here with long-term acquaintance Jonathan Becher. We know each other from things we don't want to talk about, but we want to talk about the exciting things, how technology is changing sports.
Holger, good to see you. And after
Likewise.
do I only get to see you once a year? Is that
Once
how this
a year
works?
in Half Moon Bay, kind of like how it works.
It's a tradition.
Yeah, make it to the Shark Tank.
Do you want to come out?
Sometime I have to.
We have a game tomorrow. What are you doing?
I have to fly back home, but I know you have more games coming this season.
We do indeed. I mean, look, for many years, as technologists have said, every industry is a technology company, yeah? And I think that's mostly been true. Sports and entertainment has been one of the last holdouts.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about a sports organization, most of the time those organizations look backwards. They like to talk about records of things that happened 10 years ago and 20 years ago. But the reality is that sports is changing just as fast as almost any industry. And a lot of it, like it was in every other industry, starts with back office stuff or things that the average fan doesn't see, but provides them benefits. One of my favorite changes over the last couple of years is how you actually get into large venues.
Right.
If you think about how you get large into venues, there's always been a metal detector, right? And the problem with metal detectors is they detect the things that we carry. We carry phones, which are hunks of metal. They carry keys, which are hunks of metal, right? They aren't very good. We're not protecting people from carrying phones and keys, right? So what do you really want? I hate to say it this bluntly, but you want a weapon detector, right? And so what is that? That's object recognition. Object recognition, I said I wasn't going to say it's pattern recognition. And so
machine learning.
It's machine learning. So why not build systems where they look for suspicious looking objects? Now, in our case, we have about 1.5 million people per year coming into the building. Every person entered is a training record, right? And so we can send people in silently with unusual weapons on them, small pocket knives, things that sort of look like a gun but aren't, etc. Each time that comes in. And so what we've done now, if you think about it, we're trying to get 17,000 people in every night in under 10 minutes. That's a crush. So if you have to show your phone, show your keys, show your ticket, that takes you like 3.5 minutes to get in. If I can reduce that time to about 15 seconds by not having to do any of that, then people are much happier. And when people are happier, their experience goes up. And so is that AI? Is it machine? It doesn't really matter. It's solving a fundamental problem.
It's fan experience. It's customer experience.
Exactly. Actually, one fun thing that we say is we wonder a lot about, is it fan experience, guest experience, or customer experience? And even though I know the rest of the industry likes to talk about customer experience, I tend not to use that word because it focuses on the revenue part of it as opposed to the experience part of it. So I tend to say guest experience. You're my guest.
Guest experience is great. But if the guest is the fan, then it's the fan experience.
Fair enough.
And so the guest experience, the fan experience might change because the fan of the home team and the fan of the guest team.
Exactly right.
It's getting complicated so quickly. But definitely getting quickly in the stadium is always a good experience.
Exactly
Everybody drags how early you have to be there, how long it's going to take. Clear was doing some stuff there, right? You guys did some stuff with Clear as well.
So we actually partner with Clear as well. One of the things is frictionless checkouts when you buy food or beverage or even merchandise is a big thing now. You've seen it in grocery stores and in restaurants. You now have it at stadiums and arenas as well. The problem is, how do you check to make sure that you don't look old enough to have alcohol, right? I think you've dyed your dark hair blonde now.
I'm barely legal.
And so you're exactly barely legal. So I need a way to verify your age. Again, if you have to pull out your ID, if somebody has to look at it, that's high friction. That's right. So we partner with Clear that has the biometrics. So if you've already opted into the Clear system, then as you're just walking past, you just take 2 seconds, we scan you, we go, yep. Or it's unknown, and if it's unknown, then you go a secondary scan, and it takes a little bit longer.
If we let you on our plane, we let you in our stadium, right?
Sure. Yeah. If you can get on a plane, you can get
the whole gunmetal object thing.
Exactly.
It's kind of like.
But what's the interesting thing is now you've essentially turned into exception management, right? If you can, and when people complain this took too long, then it's easy. Well, if you sign up for this thing called Clear, you can reduce your time. That's always the value proposition.
Yeah, super interesting. But the whole checkout experience super interesting too, right? So we were with Amazon at the Seattle Seahawks game. They're doing the free checkout thing as an example.
Well, it's not free. You still pay.
No, the pain-free or the faster, whatever. I experienced that very interesting years ago. The Pac-Bell Stadium, the Giant Stadium was new, and VMware had their appreciation event there, and you didn't have to pay. And the stadium was full, but there were no lines. Because people just say, I want to have that, and go. So I was doing is the selection experience would take so long. No, it's the payment experience.
It is the payment experience, exactly.
Which is interesting, right?
So then, now the interesting thing is, this is always the weakest link in the chain, because now if the payment experience is fast, then actually we do slow down on the selection, because there are the people that go, do I want this or that? So the question then becomes, do you do pre-order and pick up? And so now we have separate lines for people that are willing to open up their app and say, at the first intermission, I'm going to want, apologies, my beer, my pizza, whatever it is. They go to a second round, separate line than those that are still wondering what they want or not. So you can speed up the selection and the pickup, but independently.
But will my pizza still be hot? It might be cold.
Well, so then you actually, if you tell me when you're going to pick it up, it'll be just in time.
Just in time pizza in beer. Who doesn't want that at a big game, right? We don't want to mess with it.
Turns out pizza is not the most popular thing, as it turns out, anymore.
Yeah, what's the number one selling item for
What would you think the number one selling item is?
Water.
Actually, water is by far the number one selling item. Well done, Holger. I knew I couldn't get it past
I'm sustaining the demand for this. So I only get water.
Fair enough. How about food? What would you say the number one food is?
Nachos.
Ooh, good. Nachos is in the top 5, but not number 1.
No,
chicken.
Chicken.
All varieties of chicken.
Healthy living. Chicken,
well, I'm not sure all the chicken is as healthy as you think it is.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. So, but you did something really interesting just recently, right? Which I've been thinking of the whole time. Why do I see all this confusing advertisement there? Distracts my attention from the game. I know the brand, right? I mean, I used to work for SAP. You see SAP and you're like, oh, no, I don't want to look at the SAP side. I know that, right? You did something super interesting. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So if you've been to any professional sports organization, if you've seen NASCAR, et cetera, you know that more and more traditional brands are trying to associate them with sports. Why? Because there's passion in sports, and if you can take that passion in sports and circumvent it on your own brand, which may not be quite the same level of passion as sports or music or other things as well, you get some brand association. The problem is if you have too many different logos and displayed, then the awareness of what did I actually see goes down because there's conflicting logos. And in fact, I mean, this has been a joke, and I apologize for anybody that might be involved with NASCAR. It's been a joke of that too many logos on the hood. I can't recommend.
NASCAR shirt, right? There's even a name for it, right?
There is.
NASCAR slide, if you say that, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So one of the things when I looked at the game of hockey, which is the one that I'm involved in these days, is the boards that go around the rink. There are lots of different logos there. In fact, in one camera shot, you can see 12 different logos. So it occurred to me that is great when you're in stadium, in arena, because you're going to fixate on 1 or 2 places at a time. But when you're watching on TV, your recall of those logos go down. So the question I asked ourselves is, could we do a total takeover? Would it be possible for us to hide all the logos that are there physically and digitally reinsert one logo at a time?
Overall,
on top of all of them, but not just where logos are traditionally, but anywhere on the display surface. So we partnered with a company that actually uses, again, I'm not going to say AI.
Machine learning.
This is machine learning with object recognition, because it turns out the camera moves quite quickly because the puck in hockey is the fastest moving sport. So this is hard to do. And for between 30 and 90 seconds, depending on the game situation, we can do a advertising total takeover.
Amazing.
And right now, the insertions happened at fixed times of the game. But the second generation, what we're trying to do is make it context aware.
Dynamic,
So dynamic for not just what's happening, a goal got scored, a penalty got called, but increasingly dynamic based on your viewing preferences.
Oh, interesting.
So if I know you're at home, personalized as well, because one of the fundamental problems with TV, the word broadcast literally meant broad.
Exactly.
Everyone gets the same thing.
Death of advertising.
That's exactly right. We want narrowcast, where Holger, because I know you're a teetotaler, you don't drink at all.
I get the water.
You get the water. I'm never going to serve you a beer ad. I'm going to serve you the very expensive water ads instead.
Exactly. The high-end Fiji water out of volcanic whatever pieces.
Fiji did not pay any money for that endorsement just then.
No. It's totally coincidental.
Exactly. Right.
Just talking about prices here. Yeah, very interesting. And the technology behind it is real time on the TV broadcast?
That's correct.
Okay.
So
people in the audience still have whatever.
People in the audience still have the same.
You can't touch the contract.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
So this is only, and right now we can actually make it based on which audience. So it could be just the home team display, just the away.
Great.
We can say at home it's just this DMA and not that DMA, etc.
And it's even on the floor, right? Because the floor sometimes that's also fixed.
Yeah, we call that ice.
Ice, yes.
That's right. So we can actually.
Is the advertisement on the ice or on the floor under it?
It's actually projected on the ice.
It's projected.
Well, so to be fair, in person, it's actually on the surface below the ice.
Yes, that's what I saw.
But on TV, it's projected on top of it.
Yeah.
In fact, we can project it on the glass as well. So that glass is what protects the players from, the pucks from going into the stands as well. Ultimately, we think we can project it on the puck itself, although it's a little bit of a small surface. And then the funny thing is we've been experimenting with, do we project it on the uniforms? But I don't think we're really going to do that.
Okay. Super interesting. The technology can do that.
That's correct.
On the uniforms, because people are moving more, like surfaces easier.
Exactly.
From a geometrics thing, remembering my math a little bit.
But here's the interesting thing. And so maybe the advice I'd give technologists, even though I'm not at a technology company anymore, I still view myself as a technologist. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
And the classic example in sports is variable-based pricing. So now we have complicated models with 20, 30, sometimes even 40 different elements, day of the week, opponent, weather, traffic, your background, et cetera. So we can price a seat down to the individual seat. If there are 17,000 seats in the stadium, we could create 17,000 different prices for the same game.
Perfect, yeah.
But think about it. You and I are sitting next to each other. If your seat is worth $1 more than mine, just because I can, if you find out that I spent $1 less, you're going to be pretty annoyed. And so the question...
We're used to it from airlines. Right? Nobody has paid the same for the ticket, right? They're sitting next to each other and same ticket.
Fair enough. But you know, it's funny, on the consumer side, the passion matters more than revenue maximization. And so that's the question. Am I in the revenue maximization business or am I in the guest experience business? If I'm in the revenue maximization business, I probably should, but I think I'm in the guest experience business, so I probably shouldn't.
Fair enough. And have you just started this? Have you advertisers seen some ROI on it already? Does it make a difference?
So Total Takeover was launched on October 10th. That was our first, it's actually October 12th. It is literally brand new as we sit here a few days before American Halloween. And we've had our first 3 people take us up on Total Takeover. Well, I guess one I can talk about publicly because they gave me permission, which is Coors Light, the beer company as well. And 2 of the 3 have already more than earned their ROI back.
Oh, excellent. So how do they measure it? People running to the Coors, opening the Coors beers when they see the fridge then?
So you know what, it's funny that you asked that question because probably one of the most secretive thing in American advertising is how people actually measure ROI.
Yeah, of course.
And virtually every brand measures it slightly differently.
Of course.
So
marketing lives from transparency, right?
So I managed not to answer your question then.
Yeah, very cool. No, it's totally fine. But good to see that the ROI is there, right?
It
Which
is.
Intuitively makes sense. I only see this thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the most recent thing before they used technology to make the guest experience better?
So we talked a little bit about the frictionless entry. We talked a little bit about the transactions.
Right.
Not in any order, but I'll tell you another one that jumps up in mind is, this started years ago, but now it's been taking up, is another point of friction is cash. And there's a funny nuance because your initial reaction is, oh, it takes time for people to give cash, so we should go cashless.
Right.
The problem is, even here in Silicon Valley, and we're doing this thing in Silicon Valley, there's a whole collection of people that rely on cash as an ecosystem, and going cashless disadvantages that group. So that feels wrong because that's back to fan experience problems. If you say I'm only going to accept debit or credit cards, then it's hard to know exactly, but I'd say somewhere between 10 and 20% of our fan base, our guests, particularly on the concert side, more than on the hockey side, didn't feel bad. So we said, great, how do we get them involved? So we flipped it on its head and we partnered with a bank and we built eventually a reverse ATM. So a reverse ATM sounds like what it is, or is what it sounds like, I guess is a better way to say that, which is you put your cash in and you get an ATM back. You got a debit card back. The debit card is a Sharks branded debit card.
Of course.
And we actually have a very interesting thing to do, which is most debit cards have some fee associated with them.
Okay.
We swallow the fee.
Nice.
So if you give me 20 bucks, it's not me, of course, but if you put 20 bucks in, you get 20 bucks of stored value.
And the debit card which works only at the Sharks.
So that's the innovation, because it's now a true debit card. Not only does it work in our buildings, we have 4 buildings in Northern California, but it works anywhere in the world that a debit card is assigned.
Perfect.
So what happens to me?
I don't have to worry putting too much money in it. Which
that's exactly right, because the nuance before is I'd only buy $30 worth of stuff. Now you can say I can spend 100 and then use it at the grocery store if you want.
Perfect.
But what does that mean for the card holder? That means suddenly I have data not on just the transactions that happen in the building, but the transactions that happen whatever. But it's anonymous. No personal identification as well. So I can go back to my brand sponsors to pick on one of my favorite and say Coke versus Pepsi, we're a proud Coke building. Turns out that people don't just buy Coca-Cola products in my building, but 61% of them actually buy it in their daily life.
After a total takeover
of
the arena,
you got it.
You use the Sharks card to get 10% off on the...
You want to know the hint of how I know what ROI is that's not just limited to transactions that happen in the building.
Very interesting. Very cool for your recent thing, the reverse ATM. You heard it here first. And what's coming next? Can you share something?
Wouldn't that be competitive disadvantage change next? So no, I'm just kidding. I would say personally, because there's lots of innovation happening everywhere, where I'm most interested in is how to actually use analytics to change the way the game of hockey is not played, because the rules are the rules, but rather how we prepare people for the game of hockey. In the same way that technology has been used for educational systems, they haven't really been used for what we would call player development systems. And in most sports, there's a set playbook. There's a set way you do that. What makes hockey unusual to American basketball, American football, all that, is there's not set of plays. American hockey, ice hockey, is more of a chaotic system. For those of you that might be math oriented, it is stochastic models, not linear models.
Yep.
And so the way to train people is by exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
When the pattern that you expect doesn't happen, how do you actually react?
Right.
And that's harder for humans to track
True.
in 60 minutes of game times,
Yep.
easier for automated systems to do that. And we're starting to invest in those kind of things.
Right.
And telling you how you should better train is different than telling me how I should better train.
course,
And
of
doing
course,
that
of course.
is where I think the next generation is going.
Yeah, I think there's huge upside in training by digitization, understanding what people are doing from a game for another game, understanding the opponent, by preferences of players, skate to the left, skate to the right, goalies moving to the right, to the left. There's a super interesting thing also AWS has done. They digitized all the Bundesliga soccer games.
Yep.
And they came up.
You're telling me I don't know what Bundesliga is?
Okay. For the audience.
For the audience. Okay.
The German professional soccer team, the
Yeah.
Premier League of Germany,
Correct.
to translate it, right? Because all Americans are the Premier League. Bundesliga, what is this guy saying? And they have the expected goals.
Yes.
Yeah, which is super interesting, which I would love to see in anything. I would like to expected basket, expected goals in hockey, so I know who's been lucky, who's not been lucky, right? Would love to see more of these stats, to see that. Yeah.
Well, that is one of the new hot microstats in hockey, which is saves. So goalie saves above expected average.
Oh, okay.
So then you can debate to whether your goalie should have saved a few more and let it Kevlin or saved a few less as well. But I'll tell you, one of the very simple practical things that we're working on right now is, are you training too hard? One of the tendencies, particularly for younger players, because they want to prove themselves, is to spend too much time in practice, to exert momentum. Hockey season's 82 games long. If you overtrain at the beginning, you don't have the energy to finish. And so that's one of the things we're working on now.
Super interesting. So, well, we'll do the lactic acid test every day.
Yeah, fair enough.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Pleasure as always, Holger.